If you're tired of corporate media bowing to fascists and fundamentalists, check out The Collective. It's a grassroots, creator owned platform for people who believe in liberation, not empire. At The Collective, you'll find fiery essays, sharp satire, and thought provoking articles from today's boldest, justice minded writers. Plus, you'll get real tools to create change, like scripts to contact your congresspeople, guides to push back locally, and a nationwide directory of Black and queer owned businesses. Use promo code RADICALLOVE for 10% off a yearly subscription. That's a savings of 20% off the monthly price. Visit thecollective.com. That's TheQuollective and become part of something that resists, reimagines, and rebuilds.
This is Radical Love Live, an ongoing series of conversations with thought leaders exploring faith outside the boxes, hosted by Mark Dilcomb and Kelly Wilson.
Hey, Mark.
Hello, Kelly.
How are you today?
I'm freaking awesome.
You hesitated.
I had to think about it, but it's like, oh, do I say it? And I don't want to say it as a rhetorical statement because it's not. I truly am freaking awesome.
Well, that's good. That's good to hear.
Thank you.
What's been going on that's making you feel so awesome?
Well, maybe we'll dig into this a little bit. So I will tease this that I had quite an experience this past week, with All Hallows Eve, and this time of, where the veil is very thin and the presence of people that are, near and dear.
The sort of transition from Halloween into All Saints into All Souls for those who don't celebrate that. There are a lot of churches that celebrate and I always get it wrong. Is it the Feast of All Saints on the first and All Souls on the second?
On the second, yeah.
Okay.
And then, in some cultures that's a huge deal, especially in Mexican culture with the Day of the Dead and the celebration. But it's more than just a day; it's an entire month. So, but as such, so that's that. Again, a little bit of a story that goes to that, so not dive there immediately. And then second thing is I think, done with my manuscript for Unrepentant. I hope I am.
Oh, wow. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's a big deal.
It is a big deal. It's, it is, I don't want to... it's hard to do a fair comparison. I was going to say, well, it's kind of like giving birth, but I wouldn't know what that would be like, first of all, and I don't want to diminish that experience for anyone who has delivered a baby that, I don't know if writing a book or a manifesto is quite the same as giving birth to a live, sentient creature. But in a way, it does feel that way. It is a birthing process of some kind. And to look at it and immediately realize my work is done at this moment. And so thank you for the congratulations. It's a very freeing experience. Now, I've had that happen before, so I felt like, is this a deja vu? But no, it's there. So,
well, cool. Well, what are next steps for it?
To get it laid out, and my plan is to do self-publish. I've studied up on that, thinking, well, can I put this out into the world via a publisher? Possibly, but it is. I think it could be best defined as experimental, at least in the eyes of most publishers. They would look at it. Now, there's a couple out there in existence that I want to put it out, but because of what it is, and it's an iterative process, and it's alive and breathing. So I can figuratively. There could be future versions of this that then could go published mainstream. It's interesting. I've really thought a lot about it, though. This is a body of work that should be in the hands of folks in seminary. Because it is queer theology. It's very, it's experimental is not the right word. I just use that because it's the only word I know in my vocabulary at the moment to describe it. But it's really looking at queer theology through my eyes, not in an academic way, but a lived experience. And because of that, I'm sharing, again, not what it is to be, erudite and educated and, have degrees in theology. It's not, yes, I would like, somebody to read it, but I want them to feel it from what is it for somebody like me or queer folks like us. What is that lived experience inside of a faith community and the harm that has taken place and the harm that continues to take place, and what can we actually do about it? This is not theoretical and just theology. There's applied work inside of here, so it's opening that space up to have those kinds of conversations.
It's interesting that you approach it from that direction, because theology, I've studied a lot of theology, and there's only so far you can go intellectually.
Yeah.
And there's some part of it that is felt or experiential or is known on an intuitive level that can't necessarily be articulated clearly in a formula. That you sort of need narrative, stories, experiences, journeys, to be able to get a sense of the full dimensionality of spirituality.
Yeah, well said. And this is what this does. It's very lived experience. I mean, it has some harsh language in there for the church, but not out of spite and meanness. This has been a work in progress for some years to get to this point. But it is the outpouring of radical love, which, is it coincidental that our podcast we called 5 years ago when we were talking about names, Radical Love Live? Maybe that's where the seed was planted. Possibly.
I think it's 6 years ago.
Yeah, that's right. It was 6 years ago. Oh my God, time flies. That was 2019. That is exactly right. It's been 6 years since we talked about the concept, and we put on our first live event in January of 2020, and that is, oh my gosh, that's going to be 6 years. Oh my gosh. So it has been. Oh my God, my friend, I have known you and I. Well, I've known you longer than 6 years, but we started talking about this over 6 years ago.
Yeah.
Oh. Well, all of a sudden I had a wave of nostalgia hit there. So
yeah, it's in like first grade now.
Right, doesn't it? So before we get too far off on my stuff, how are you?
I'm good. There's so much going on in the world right now, and as a writer and podcaster, I go back and forth all the time between wanting to say something and wanting to learn something and wanting to bridge understanding, like bridge the gaps in understanding between me and other people that understand differently than me. It sounds like I'm speaking kind of in code, but
I don't think you are.
Politically, religiously, that it continues to amaze me how differently people can see the same information, the same data, and that it really is like we're living in different worlds and speaking different languages.
Yeah, well, in some ways we are.
The things,
and I'm not talking about English versus Spanish. It's the vocabulary we use.
Right. So the things that I want to yell at other people and the things that they yell at me, neither one of them really take hold, because we're like talking about completely different priorities sometimes.
Right, and different context.
Or different definitions. Like you were talking about radical love.
Yes.
There's so many conversations about, well, a real Christian would love their neighbor, would love the foreigner, would love immigrants, would love
you know why,
queer
right?
people.
Yes.
And then there are other folks who say, yes, but love doesn't mean. I mean, we could probably do a whole show just about yes,
totally.
But
yes,
but love doesn't mean accepting what everybody else does. And then they start to like put in these caveats and be like, I'm loving somebody because I'm telling them what the rules are, or I'm loving somebody because I'm
Okay, so let's go
steering
there
them the
for a
right
minute.
way.
I'm sure our listeners would love that because
there's this debate about like what is love.
so let's go down that path for a minute.
Okay.
So you said two things here, and I agree with this issue. It is a real thing, and we see it manifested even more so because of the horrible social media. Which social media itself is not horrible; it's what we say on social media that makes it horrible. But it gives people platforms to say and do things, and just in the world in which we live. So yeah, that all aside.
Yeah, it does somehow the way it's structured though. It does bring out the worst in us.
Absolutely does, and I think maybe it's a question of the anonymity or just that. Well, I could riff on that about us being no longer humans and treating each other as objects is by virtue, and so social media actually sets that up. It is a platform for otherness and dehumanizing, just by virtue of that connection. Now, one could say, well, doesn't TV, radio, and newspapers and letters and emails do the same? Yeah, but I'd like to think we take more care in crafting our responses. I would like to think. I don't know, but
When we don't get that like dopamine hit,
that's very true.
There's this rapid response and ability to be involved, and it plays into our basest instincts.
Totally.
It's like turns us back into lizard brains. It's just totally like, yes, I'm part of my own tribe. And
totally.
Those people are monsters.
Right. Those people, they are monsters. So, okay, let's go back. So you said something that was going to lean on the Beatitudes, of course, right? You were, I believe that's where you were tracking, and you used the word Christian. So I write about this in the manifesto, not in a clobbering way, try not to. But if I take Jesus's word, it's pretty clear whether I'm looking at the Beatitudes, which are lifted out of Old Testament as well. It's not like this is a new radical concept. It is to love your neighbor as yourself. Okay, there is no buts, and I don't know anywhere where Jesus is like, well, there's except for this kind of situation, then you can do this. So I default on. There is no rationalization. There is no justification. There are no commas. There are no buts. I'm simply. It's almost like doing the red letter version of the New Testament. That looks directly only at Jesus's words, and that's what I try to live by. Now that's not easy because that means I was thinking about this as I was driving here to the studio today about. The word filth, which is a word that I use in Unrepentant in the manifesto to describe how people talk about me as a queer person being filth and an abomination. And I thought of a particular group of people in that same moment today. Proves that I can definitely go there like anybody else. And stop, I can't do that. I will not allow myself to ever call somebody else filth, because it's not even a question about hypocrisy. It's like, if I am following the teachings of Jesus as I understand them and I import them in, there is no such thing as filth. We are all divine. We are all holy. We are all, this diamond, as Richard Ward would say, the immortal diamond. And you may do something I disagree with. I think you might do something that is abhorrent, but even then, that's separate of the person. So I don't want to take over your.
No. It's I actually hear what you're saying, and this is kind of what the conversation that I am hearing and seeing is people, and even people who are not Christians, are going like, isn't Christian supposed to be love? Like, people kind of have a sense of what Christian's supposed to be, even if they're not believers.
Of course.
But I know that somebody's listening to this going, wait, didn't Jesus teach about hell? Didn't Jesus say if you lusted over somebody, you could possibly go to Gehenna?
Yeah, you're right.
If you cause a little one to stumble, you would go to Gehenna. And, I could see somebody saying, well, you're picking and choosing the words of Jesus because you're saying he told us to love, but he also judges and sends people to
But
Gehenna
does
for
he,
doing
though?
bad
He
stuff.
doesn't send anybody to Gehenna. He doesn't send anybody outside of the wall, which, by the way, I think anybody who listens to Radical Love Live probably knows where hell comes from. Gehenna being literally the burn pits outside the city walls. Hence the reason.
Right, like it was a real place.
It was a real place,
It's kind
yeah.
of like sending somebody out to the Meadowlands or something. It's kind of like,
Wow. Okay, so better be careful. You might be offending some New Jerseyans about that. What do you mean the Meadowlands are like
wait,
like hell?
I live in New Jersey. I
that's
don't mean
true.
like the
Okay.
stadium and the whole complex. I just mean like back in the old days. You
Okay.
think,
All
you know,
right.
there's-
You can be careful, people.
how many people are floating around out there in those shoes?
Oh, well, now, total tangential. Flashback was one of my favorite posters for The Sopranos was Tony and Carmela and all of them were in a boat crossing the Hudson into the Meadowlands, and of course, there, and I think there were bodies in this as well, totally playing into that. How many people are wearing concrete shoes?
Yeah, like a couple bags of concrete. Just a little.
Anyway, I'm
it's
sorry.
just trying to
total, yeah.
But yeah, that it was like a bad place
Yes.
that you would go, and to your point, I've seen arguments that that posit that what Jesus was saying, like if you lead a life of sin, if you lead a life of selfishness where you're totally focused on the flesh and not on the spirit, your life's going to end up in a bad place.
Does he say that? No.
No, that's an interpretation.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to make sure because I'm like, I'm not sure that I'm processing that, and I don't profess to literally know every word of any one particular version of the New Testament. But this work and this journey I've been on for a number of years, but especially writing the manifesto, I've taken some time with Scripture, and nowhere do I ever. In fact, I could see your interpretation where you mentioned the interpretation, how that's a common refrain to go pick something and go, well, there's always the but. Again, I don't see where the but comes from with Jesus. He simply says, here are the things that will happen or can happen, and using parables to illustrate. He's a great storyteller, and that's what makes that so alluring to me. Is like once you get past the what's a parable and the paradox, and learn how to do both and not either or, which I think I've gotten good at. To see that and be able to hold the tension of both. I love the words, and I look at that as a way that it simply shows me how I can be divine and imperfect as well. It's not about being this perfect, sinless, and even the word sin I get a little twitchy about because of how we use it. But if I'm falling away from my own divinity, it's on me. I can't blame somebody else for my sins. I make choices that that's going to keep me close to my own divinity and out of that kind of sinful thing, which again, I get really weird about that word because of how do we define sin? Sin to me is actually just falling away, not recognizing my own divinity, and that we are all connected into the oneness, which you and I have talked about this before, and I do believe that. And there are moments when I can feel that absolute oneness and the connection, which that's when I hear how people are interpreting, and then I can hold space for that also, knowing that we're all on our own journeys, So their interpretations, like I get it because I've been on, we're all on our own journeys. So how somebody sees something is their moment in time, which I'm getting to my point.
Okay.
I write a lot about, inside of Unrepentant, about flawed theology. And this is a notion that I've been rolling around with now for some years. What is flawed theology? And at first I was like, well, it's the intentional. It's taking Scripture and intentionally changing it to, or interpreting it to meet one's needs, which I do write about. Like in the case of power and other ways, it's a great way to manipulate groups based on interpretation of Scripture. But flawed theology is not always done for malevolent reasons. It could just be simply the person's experience or how their level of understanding. Because the Christian tradition, when you really dig into, and I'm sticking strictly with New Testament here, between the Gospels and the writings of Paul and all the other elements go into what is New Testament. It's a pretty complex.
It is. It's complex, and it's not univocal. It says
well
different
said.
things.
I like that word, univocal.
Yeah, I borrowed that from Dan McClellan. He talks about that a lot.
I love that, and that's absolutely right, because it's not univocal.
Right. Like even something like the rapture, which I don't believe that the Bible describes a rapture. But if you've got one writer who's talking about Jesus coming in clouds of glory,
yes,
and then you have another writer who talks about Jesus coming as a thief in the night,
yes,
well, an interpreter might say, well, both of those things can't happen at the same time.
Well, because that's that either or, right?
So they say, oh, well, he must be coming back twice then. He's going to come back in a sneaky way and then come back in a big glorious way.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But it's possible that you've got two different writers who believe that Jesus is coming back somehow, and one of them is emphasizing the glorious nature of it, and the other one is emphasizing the suddenness of it.
Well said.
And that they might both be just talking about the same event from different angles.
I would like to think that. And so McClellan's word, univocal, works here. I would say that's just different perspective, which, by the way, I uphold. So I had to get myself through the process to understand when somebody says that they see me and my life as being sinful, wrong. It's going to separate me from God, all that stuff, and may even bar me from entry to heaven. I am no longer angry about all of that. I'm not. I mean, it doesn't make me happy. I get angry when it's used against people. Now, let's be clear about that. But if you're going to point it towards me and say that, I know how to just put it in context that you're coming from your worldview, your perspective, and it does not align with mine. And ultimately, your perspective is equal to mine. And okay, great. We're not going to agree on perspective. And I think the authorship of the different scriptures and the different books of New Testament and Old Testament, when you look at all the different authors involved, I feel like it's much of that same, different perspective of the same events and, different points. The Gospels, even how they're portrayed. If you look at some elements, because between we're talking about the four. There's obviously other Gospels, but the ones that we know about in the accepted versions of New Testament, I can appreciate the different points of view, and it allows me to lean deeper into my faith because it is multiple perspectives. But unfortunately, this is the catch. If somebody is looking for a clear, this is how it's going to be kind of, I think you need to find a different religion or faith, and with a different set of books, right? Because the Bible itself is actually what our forms is 66 in a Protestant version, and however many it is for Roman Catholic. But yeah, because there are no. If you're looking for an absolute in our faith, I was like, well, I don't know if this is the right one for you. You might want to go somewhere else.
Yeah, it's like when they're interviewing the Speaker of the House who says, if you want to know my worldview, then just pick up that Bible. And you go like, wait a minute.
Right. Yeah.
You got to be a little bit more specific than that, because you can carve out a lot of different worldviews from the enormity of literature that are in this.
Absolutely. So
a library of texts across genres, across cultures, across centuries.
Absolutely. And that leads into this. And so maybe I'm a peculiar person, but I can't be the only one that thinks this way. And, I will not speak for you, though. I have no right to do that. This is why I love our faith even more. I find myself falling in love more and more with our tradition and all of that, because it's messy and it's contradictory, and it's the both and again, I write about this in the manifesto. Like, I've learned to love that, and I think that when people say, is God dead, I think, well, that's the wrong question to ask. Mm-hmm. Because God is not dead. As long as we are having this very conversation, God is alive, because we are talking about that, or Jesus, or whatever word you want to use in that moment. I look forward to our faith getting to the point, and maybe we're circling back to where we started this conversation, where we live in both and we and it's not agreeing to disagree. It's more than that. It's realizing that we all are sovereign, and we can all, we do have our own individual worldviews, our own biblical viewpoint, and that no two people ever can have exactly the same. That's not how that's going to work, unless you're going to. Even then, I think we could fight over one particular word, God. Maybe that's, there's just.
I'm glad you picked a simple one.
Yeah, I know, of all words, right? God. Let's go with God. One 3-letter word, and the havoc that it creates. I see this as a dare I say this word, dark time for our faith, because of the moment of our time. But it's not the first dark time of the history of what is the Abrahamic faith. I mean, starting with Old Testament Hebrew, coming into the time of Christ. Of course, then you look at Muhammad as prophet, to Islam, and how we have made this journey just within our faith tradition through those 3 recognized ways. We're still writing this story, and there's been plenty of dark moments in this, and I think we are in one of those. And which one of the things I threw into you about in conversation is the Gallup poll that came out this week that measured religiosity, and it does it internationally, not just in the United States, but in the last 10 years, the number has dipped basically like over 10%. When people ask, the question that's asked in the Gallup poll is essentially, is religion important to you? And the number back in 2015 was, like over 60%, and now the number is at 49%. Mm-hmm. A significant drop. And so Gallup, they point out, and they show other countries, and the number here in the United States is actually greater than these other 38 countries. Like, it's a dramatic drop when you mm-hmm. see it on a chart. And it feels kind of obvious, because people simply don't have a connect to, and you can say, well, people don't go to church. And I was like, yeah, but why do people not go to church? I think is the greater question. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say that there's this growth of the idea of spiritual but not religious.
Oh, the SBNRs.
Because there is, it's not that the longing for connection with the divine has gone away. But the church and religious institutions are not seen as trustworthy. They're seen as
correct,
greedy and falling apart and
biased and
not safe. I mean, there's
safe.
places, that like you can't drop your children off at church and trust that they're going to be safe there.
That's very true. That's why I'm doing the work that I'm doing with Divine all along. And I know you didn't set me up for that, but that's the entire purpose of Divine Spaces, is to hold faith communities responsible with accountability tools, like where people can actually feel confident that their child is not going to come out traumatized because of what was said. I mean, we have to set boundaries. It's the one thing we can't. And so to this point, I agree. I mean, if I were a parent at this point, I'm like, I would be really uncomfortable just allowing somebody to tell them their worldview, their biblical worldview. And I mean, you shared some of your experiences.
I had to unlearn all kinds of crazy stuff that I learned from untrained people in the nursery, who were just kind of
right. You shared that.
They were just kind of like spitballing. But also, I mean, when I talk about safety, I also mean like physical safety. Like
there's that too. Yeah. You see youth pastor, youth minister, you're like,
every day there's somebody in the news who's like, here's somebody who was grooming your children.
Yep.
I saw the comedian Bill Burr the other day, he's somewhat controversial. Some people like him, some people don't. And he kind of screwed up lately, I think, with also going to that.
Yeah, when he went over to the Emirates. I was like,
but the point,
and then trying to justify, I was like, well, come on, they're good people too. Yeah. Okay, don't dig.
And we made a little money. They were laughing.
They were laughing. Yeah, okay,
but he was making a point about, and he was specifically focusing on the Catholic Church, although I think it could be expanded to a lot of other denominations. But he was like, what other business would be allowed to continue with their track record of like sexual assault? Like, what other business would be allowed?
He talked about that.
Yeah, he called it straight out. He was just like, nobody would. And they're like, oh yeah, we just, we covered it up. We moved him to the other town. That the church really needs to step up if it wants to continue to survive. I mean, every time I see, I read about spiritual but not religious, and people talk about, religion is dry and cold, and it's because it's all about rules. It's all about telling you that you're bad. I disagree with that because I consider myself spiritual and religious. Like, I get a lot out of the liturgy.
Like that. You're the first person that's ever vocalized it like that, spiritual and religious.
Yeah, I get a lot out of the ritual, and I don't see that as a bad thing. And I think it's because having come from kind of low church Protestant, it was a little too freewheeling when I was growing up, like the structure. Well,
especially when you have a Sunday school teacher freewheeling and talking about her sexual escapades in a
right. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's right. Like, boys and girls, you'll never understand that it's so wonderful. With your first sexual experiences with your husband, let me tell you about me and Bob.
No. Yeah. No, don't tell me about
you. Have already told me enough. Thank you.
Traumatized. Red alert.
But
stranger danger.
But yeah, I mean, religion is, has taken a hit, and if it wants to continue to be relevant. Religious institutions have to really reform.
Absolutely. They need to step up their fucking game and call it what it is. And that's where I get all feisty, because you and I we share the same denomination. And I don't want to beat up on the Episcopal Church because they're doing so much good work. But, there's a nickname for our denomination, the Frozen Chosen, right? And so we're making inroads in this. But again, this is for all denominations and non-denominational. It doesn't matter. It is a community that they need to be safe and accountable to what they are teaching inside of that. I mean, again, we can have a conversation about what is religion, but the way it's been done has been really shitty. I mean, I don't know.
Oh yeah.
It's
And
like,
it's just
bad stuff, and that's why people say, "Well, I don't want to be around a religion." I get you because it's shitty stuff.
and through history, like you go,
Yeah, this is not new.
you go back, like the Christian church has been on the wrong side of a lot of different situations, and the Crusades, the Inquisition, slavery,
Oh my God! So speaking of which, I've come to working on again the manifesto. The folks that I lean on most are Black folks that are some contemporaries in particular that one in which has been on this show to me, Spencer Helms, with her book Faith Unleavened, which
her insights are really sharp.
Oh God, this is so, and she gets that from our other cloud of witnesses, and that being like James Cone, who was at Union Theological, who, Black liberation theology man, and he was feisty, right? He didn't pull any punches. Go look at his books, and Audre Lorde and Bell Hooks and James Baldwin and Howard Thurman, and the list goes on, and I'm missing. And it's not coincidental that they're all Black African American, right? That they can speak, and I'll not forget, Tamis calls it about knowing your roots, knowing one's roots, and how that, because being a part of oppression inside of church, which, as the old cliche goes, what's the most segregated hour? And that is 11 a.m. on Sundays, because this is talking about the Black church being completely separate from white church. And we see that even in our own denomination a lot too, even though there's a send up to Absalom Jones, and there are different Episcopal parishes that are very well integrated and not just all white. But it's the point that we have not, the Christian tradition is still failing on that, because they have yet to even make any substantial reparations about that. And you think about that, we have a major denomination with however many millions of members they have, Southern Baptist Convention, that was created specifically because they were opposed to any kind of racial reconciliation and ending slavery. So it's like, no, we're not. And so therefore, they created their own denomination. They still, here they are existing. And it's just, oh God, this is bad stuff. And I can see why people say, I'm not going to tolerate that. And they need to be held accountable. And I do write about that from a queer point of view as well. When does the reconciliation and the reparation start for the countless millions of queer people that have been harmed by Christian church as well? And it's not a comparison against the Black liberation. It is both of them and any other oppressed group who's been used. I mean, look what we did to indigenous people. Oh my God! People like Christopher Columbus, who we, in some bizarre ways, we still hold him up as the founder of finding new country. I'm like, no, he was sent over here by the empowerment of a pope and a queen to go conquer lands in the name of God against heathens, and because they were not human. They were just things. They were animals. So anyway,
and the killing and the slavery and I want to go back to.
I'm just laughing because it's such a free association.
Something we were talking about before the broadcast is this story that's been circulating on TikTok about the woman who posed as a pregnant or a young mother.
Yeah.
She had like a recording of a baby playing in the background, and she would call church after church after church and say, I don't have any money. My baby needs formula. Can you help me just get through the day? Like, can you just give me, help me buy a can of formula? And, and I do have some issues with this experiment that she did. I mean, one, she's, misrepresenting herself. It's kind of like a setup. And, she's doing
that dude that used to do that with liberal organizations, right?
Right. Like did the video.
James, what's his name?
Planned Parenthood.
Yeah.
But anyway, that it's like this gotcha moment, and she showed that like most of the churches that more churches said no than said yes, and people are using this as yet more evidence of the church isn't compassionate. And I do. There's some caveats there because having been on church boards and knowing how like churches aren't set up as charity centers; they're set up as
correct,
like
unless they have
centers.
a charity center within them. But that's a purposeful program. That's a ministry. That's what we call ministry. Yes,
right.
Yeah.
So it's kind of it's should churches be set up to provide for the poor? Actually, I think they should.
Yes.
It's definitely a huge mandate. So I'm not faulting that. But I say all that to say I'm reading one of the articles about what she did. And this is from a religion reporter named Julie Roys, who, frequently writes about religion in America, but brings up that a commenter on TikTok praised the churches who said yes. The quote is, "The fact that 2 black churches, a mosque, and a small rural church were the first to say yes without hesitation, while big-name, mega-influential churches like Joel Osteen's..."
Oh, she called up Joel Osteen's?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
But this just goes to what you were saying a few minutes ago, that the black churches that she called were the first ones to unhesitatingly say, no, I will absolutely, or say, yes, I will absolutely help you get baby formula today. Despite what you were talking about this like division, that it's like the brokenheartedness creates a certain amount of compassion.
I would agree that it does. Absolutely. Wow. Thank you for sharing that. I didn't. When we had talked about it.
The line here is that it's always the marginalized communities that know struggle who show up first.
I would agree. This is, yes, I do believe that what keeps the Christian church going is, honestly, it is the marginalized and the oppressed, which, God, reminds me of something that Mark said, which is true. It is a quote. Part of his manifesto was that, religion is the opiate of people, for the people. And it is, because there's comfort that comes inside of that, and he meant it in that context, right? It wasn't,
all those guys get pulled out of context, like Nietzsche saying God is dead. Like it was a complaint. It wasn't like a triumphant
context.
Like God is dead and man has killed him. I mean, that's
God. If anything else, I have learned in this process of writing Unrepentant and all the journaling I've done, I have learned the value of context. I can honestly say I did not know how to apply it well. But as part of this journey, I now know don't ever take something for face value without first filtering just a little bit of context to understand that, especially when it's something like a biblical scripture. Mm-hmm. You need to read what's before it and after as well, before you even go down that path, because we see it time and again with like the 6 clobber phrases that are used against queer people as well. Like, can you please read the rest of Romans as an example? You might want to do that.
Right, and then get in some historical context and find out what was going on.
Yeah. But that context thing is complicated
at the time.
Yeah.
But it's also like the context around what we were talking about earlier about the teaching about Gehenna and hell, and just even how those get conflated, and then all the Dante stuff.
There's this real thing.
Yeah, it gets retroactively put into it when it was like, why is like a place of darkness that is also eternal fire? Like that's literal. But when he's talking about like a rich man walking through the eye of getting a camel through the eye of a needle, like that's a metaphor.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of picking and choosing there.
I love it. Can I go back to something real quick as we start buttoning up this episode, which has been a great episode.
It has. I kind of like this free association.
I do too. Hopefully our listeners are like, okay, we can do this with you. Or they've tuned us out and said,
I shy away from AI, but we may need it to be able to find a title and description.
This is true. This one's good.
Just to like sift through and find a theme.
I wanted to state go back to the Gallup research on religiosity. This came out in November of 25. So I just want to make sure I quote this correctly. So in their research, they found that it was a 17% drop. So in 2015, the question was percentage of U.S. adults who say religion is an important part of their daily life. In 2015, it was 66%, easy for me to say. And this year, it dropped to 49%. So it was a 17% drop, making the largest decline recorded by Gallup since 2007. So it's not the first time. Then when they lay it up against 37 other nations, that's why I was saying a minute ago, or a few minutes ago now, that it was the largest drop of other leading nations that included, I'm trying to pull it up here real quick, bear with me. Well, it was the obvious ones like Italy and Germany and the UK, et cetera. So I think this plays back into just this reality that people are saying, I've had enough, which goes back to this abuse, which goes back to not being safe. So if there is any hope for the church, it is establishing, what is clear boundaries, what is safe and what is appropriate. And even to have these kind of conversations like what we're having right now, they must happen, but allow them to be flourishing. And they could be, I'm sure, some pretty wild conversations. But the danger is when something is put out and said as a biblical fact or this is absolute, that is the damage. That's the damage that happened to me. And when you have some, and I'm one of millions of people, and you have your own story as well about what, how that impacted you when somebody says something that came as the word of God. I'm like, no one can speak for God.
Right, but it's an adult in church, and I heard that.
Exactly.
And, this brings me back to the whole question of what do we mean when we talk about love, which.
Are we back to that?
So simple, so big, but because when we talk about like context and interpretation, I could see some folks going like, "Wow, you're making the Bible so complicated that you can make it say whatever you want it to do." And now I don't know anything.
Well, you can. Zach Lambert talks about that in his most recent book. But anyway, yeah.
But I would say that we can actually simplify it, and that people who look at the Bible and say, or particularly the New Testament, and say, in order to love someone, I need to be able to look at their behavior and I need to assess it and I need to judge it. And if it's wrong, then I need to teach them the right thing so that they're not. I believe that those people are complicating it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's
and
not
to roll it back a little bit. And I'm going to go to the Gospel of John.
Okay, go for it.
John 3:17, which we hear so much about, says, God did not send his son into the world to judge the world, but in order that the world might be saved through him. And then Jesus himself says in John 12:47, he says, I did not come to judge the world, but to save the world. So Jesus didn't come to judge. And you can see it in his behavior. You can see it when they're trying to stone the woman who was caught in adultery. He's like, go
sin no more.
Go and sin no more. And he's hanging out with prostitutes and tax collectors. He's not standing in the midst of them going, what you guys are doing is wrong.
He wasn't hanging out with the Pharisees. They hated him.
So right. They're the ones
were trying to kill him.
They're the ones who are going around pointing fingers saying, you are not supposed to do that, and you won't be accepted by God unless you do that. And they're the bad guys.
Yes.
So I'm going to quote another one of these little catchphrases that floats around on the internet is like, if Jesus didn't come to judge the world, I'm pretty sure you weren't put here to do it either.
Okay.
So as Christians, as, say somebody who wants to run a church, are you supposed to be loving people by looking at them and telling them what they're doing is wrong and steering them the right way? Or are you supposed to be loving people by loving them and let God sort them out?
You're so good. You sneaky devil. Okay, well, this has been a great conversation.
Yeah, it has. It's fun and freeing.
Indeed. Yes, indeed. All right, my friend. Well, maybe we should wrap this one up, and we'll
All right.
put this one down for the books.
All right, sounds good. Thank you, Mark. It's been a great conversation.
See ya.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Radical Love Live.